In 1971, a psychological experiment at Stanford University tried to answer a simple question. What happens when ordinary people are given power over others? 24 college students volunteered. They were healthy, normal, with no criminal record. They were randomly divided into two groups, guards and prisoners. What happened next shocked even the researchers, because within just a few days, the situation inside the prison began to spiral out of control. The volunteers were recruited through a simple newspaper advertisement. The offer was straightforward: $15 per day for participating in a psychology study. 75 young men applied. After psychological testing, 24 were selected. They were considered emotionally stable, mature, and responsible. No one expected that within days, these same students would begin behaving in ways no one imagined. Inside the basement of Stanford University's psychology building, researchers constructed a simulated prison. The corridors were converted into cell blocks. Steel bars were installed along the hallway. Heavy doors separated the cells. One small room was prepared for solitary confinement. Hidden cameras were placed to observe everything. Every movement would be recorded. The experiment was ready. All that remained was for the volunteers to enter. The volunteers were randomly assigned roles. Half became guards. The other half became prisoners. The guards were given uniforms, reflective sunglasses, and wooden batons. They were instructed to maintain order inside the prison. The prisoners, however, would lose their names. Instead, they would be identified only by numbers. A small change that would soon have a powerful psychological effect. To make the experiment feel real, the researchers staged actual arrests. Local police officers arrived at the volunteers' homes. The students were handcuffed, placed in police cars, and taken to the university. At the prison, they were searched. Their clothes were removed, and they were given prison uniforms. From that moment forward, they would be known only by the numbers assigned to them. During the first hours, the environment felt strange but manageable. The guards tried to act confident. The prisoners remained quiet. Everyone understood that it was just an experiment. But as the hours passed, the guards began enforcing rules more aggressively. They ordered prisoners to stand in line, perform push-ups, and repeat their assigned numbers. Slowly, the atmosphere inside the prison began to change. Within a day, the guards began using their authority more aggressively. Some shouted orders. Others punished prisoners for small mistakes. Push-ups became a common form of discipline. Sleep was interrupted. Food privileges were removed. What began as a simple role play was turning into something much darker. The guards were no longer pretending. They were beginning to believe in the power they had been given. The prisoners reacted differently. Some became quiet and withdrawn. Others showed signs of emotional distress. One prisoner began screaming uncontrollably. Another refused to obey orders. Within just 36 hours, the first prisoner had to be released. He was experiencing severe anxiety. The researchers realized something unexpected was happening. The experiment was affecting the volunteers far more deeply than anyone predicted. As the days passed, the guards became increasingly harsh. They created humiliating punishments, forced prisoners to clean toilets with their bare hands, ordered them to chant their numbers repeatedly. Some guards seemed to enjoy their authority. Others remained passive. But no one stepped in to stop what was happening inside the prison. The line between experiment and reality was beginning to disappear. Researchers observed everything from behind the cameras. They recorded behavior, took notes, and watched the situation unfold. Yet even they began to lose perspective. The experiment had become so immersive that the observers themselves were slowly accepting the prison as reality. The question was no longer about human behavior. It had become about how far things would go. The experiment was originally planned to last 2 full weeks. But by the 6th day, the situation had become deeply disturbing. Several prisoners were suffering emotional breakdowns. The guards had grown increasingly abusive. When an outside observer saw what was happening, she immediately questioned the ethics of the study. For the first time, the researchers began to realize how far things had gone. After just 6 days, the Stanford Prison Experiment was officially terminated. What began as a simple study had revealed something disturbing. Ordinary people, placed in positions of power, could quickly become cruel. And ordinary people placed under control could quickly become helpless. The experiment remains one of the most controversial psychological studies ever conducted, because it revealed a dark truth about human nature.